Commissioner Jones, did you have something you wanted to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So last year at budget time, we raised a few issues or some things that we'd like to see incorporated, primarily based on interactions with the legislature and other discussions. I don't remember what they all were. I know that I had asked for a narrative to be included in the next budget, which is just like an executive summary of what was happening at every WMA, so that when a commissioner or a legislator visited a WMA, they would know what was going on there. You know, are they creating habitat? What are the expenditures? What's the visitation? How many? You know, just an executive summary to be part of the narrative, I guess, for the budget. The other thing was we mentioned things like aligning the schedule and the format of our budget to be, I guess, more similar to the budgets in the other departments in the state. But there were several things that were brought up by a lot of different commissioners, and I know it's not budget time, but we're about 6 months out from budget time. So I was wondering if you could give me like a preview or give the commission a preview or an update on any changes that you might be looking at going into this next budget cycle.
Certainly, Commissioner Jones, and appreciate the question and the opportunity. As Ken would remind me, it's always budget time at the TWRA. The schedule that we work off on, there's constantly some things that we're working towards, whether we're closing out a year or we're building a new budget. Since taking over the deputy role, I've gained a deeper understanding of the budget, and I need to still gain a deeper understanding of how the state budget works. And we've got some opportunities there, and we've made some contacts with some folks in the Department of F&A that are going to come out to Ellington and sit down with us and talk about some of the ways that maybe the format that we use and the terminology that we use may differ, and see what opportunities there are to align there, both so we understand how to communicate with them and they understand how we're communicating our information back. Certainly, there are some other things that we're tweaking relative to the budgetary process. We're trying to move some time forward in the year. For example, I've requested from all of the divisions at this point, any expansions for FY23, which begins in July, are going to be due to me by March 15th now. And our intention there is to kind of separate the two budget process that we were working on two budgets when we get to the July timeframe. One of them is the budget we're about to start. The other is the budget that's a year away. And I want to further separate those two processes, because I think it gets confusing when we're presenting to you expansions for 23 and also recommended budgets for 24. So we're trying to break those up, and we'll probably have more budget work going on with the commission earlier in time. The other benefit that allows is for those expansions that are added to the upcoming budget, any potential there, we want that money available on July 1 for our field personnel to purchase equipment, to begin contracts, those types of things. So we're very excited about the opportunities to continue to work with F&A to find ways to be more efficient and to be better, and there'll be much more to come as we get towards some of our budget meetings that I would expect. We're coming probably as early as April on those expansions for FY23.
So I have one more follow-up question, and I don't know why it just popped in my head. So I know there for a couple of years, because of COVID, we had a hiring freeze, and we had like 65 positions that were open. And then we added an additional 27 last year as part of the budget, and which it almost makes 100 open positions within TWRA. Where are we now as far as filling those positions? I mean, I know the guys that we've got out in the field have really been, picking up the load of an extra 100 guys. So I'd like to know how we're filling those positions that we've had open for so long.
I'll take the first part, and then I'm going to defer to our HR chief and Randy Tarpey. But the positions that were approved by the commission are not created yet. That has to go through the state budget process, and we're in that stage right now. The recommended governor's budget that we have seen, while still subject to amendment, includes 17 of those original 23 positions that the commission approved. Part of the rationale or reasoning from the commissioner of F&A as to why we did not get the full 23 was that we had some vacancies. And There's been a conversation between our director and Commissioner Ely in that regard, and we're going to work diligently to get our positions filled and get them appropriately classed for where the needs are. And I'm going to turn it over to Randy to kind of give you maybe more of a detailed update on those positions that do exist and where they stand as far as the hiring.
Hello. Okay. So I pulled a vacancy report at the beginning of last month, the beginning of this month, pardon me. And at this time, we had 44 positions listed as vacant. Now, when I say that, 20 of those positions are posted as of today. 4 of them just came back from being reclassed. 4 more are slated to be reclassed. We have probably right now about 6 that we're holding on to because we have plans for them that we just haven't gotten to right yet. So the numbers are a lot smaller than what they appear to be when we were in the hiring freeze. We worked diligently to try and get those positions posted within a month or 2 of them becoming vacant. It's just a lot of times with our agency because people promote into a position, it creates a new vacancy that then looks like we have all these vacancies. Really, it's just a trickle-down effect. We stay on top of it as much as we can. We already have plans to get the reclassification, or to get the classifications established for the positions we'll be getting in July, and we'll be moving forward to make sure we get them filled as quickly as possible. So, of course, I will point out also that our officer positions do have to be, they have to remain open so that their probationary period is timed with the Wildlife Officers Training Academy. We need to make sure that they're trained and ready to be out and commissioned before they're actually put out in the field by themselves. So, any questions?
Yeah, follow-up, how many officer positions are open?
Right now, today, on paper, we have 8. By the time we get to the academy, we're probably going to have about 16.
So as long as they're on probation, the job is open
They
until
are actually,
until they graduate.
it's not open, but they're considered probationary, so they're in training. They can't actually be out working on their own. They spend the first 23 weeks of that time at the academy, getting commissioned and trained, and then in the field training program with a sergeant.
Okay, so those positions are filled when you hire them as probation?
Correct.
Okay, how much time does it take when you have to reclass a position and you have to send it, or for hiring a position, it has to go to downtown,
Okay.
to HR? How long does that take to
Sure.
process?
So there are 2 different processes you're thinking of right now. If we're reclassing a position, what that means is that we have a vacancy, it's in a certain classification that we want to change to a different classification. When that happens, it's usually about a 2-month process to get the position downtown approved through FNA and DOHR and available for us to be able to post it to try to fill that position.
Okay, so in your explanation, we have 6 positions that you're holding open just because.
Not just because. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right, but I'm saying everything else is in process, so it looks like we've got a lot and nothing going on, and those, we're just open, but you've got 44, whatever it is, 6 of them are not in process for some reason or another, and you can
Correct.
elaborate on that, but everything else, 38 of them are just in the system.
Correct. And either posted so that people are currently applying for them today or about to be.
All right, and the 6 are defined as,
We have a few executive service positions that we are in the process of figuring out what we plan to do with them. And then a couple of technician positions that we're trying to fill the supervisor for prior to filling the lower level position.
okay, that kind of information, Chris, or whoever, would have been helpful if it had been in a summary under our vacant positions, here's why, when we went and were asked about it, when they turn us down for some of them. So that's maybe an example of what Commissioner Jones is talking about, an executive summary of.
Commissioner, I just
Go
would
ahead.
add, we did tell them that at the
Okay.
time when we had those meetings with FNA. So that information was provided prior to them making a decision.
Okay.
One question. When's the class, and this may be for Colonel, when's the class of the 16 officers going to start?
Their start date will be the 2nd week of June. We'll be posting those positions probably towards the end of March.
End of March, 1st of June. Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have a quick, go ahead, Commissioner Box, and then Commissioner Granberry.
Let me go ahead. Hey, Chris, follow up. I know Jennifer's not here today. She's soaking up the sun in Hawaii while we're getting trounced by the rain, just so everybody knows. But the meeting last week of the commission at our sunset hearing at the Senate was very successful, and obviously we had all the information that we needed if we were asked. But Jennifer had done those trifold informational cards a couple of years ago. 2020 was the date on them, and we distributed all of them that Bobby brought with him, and I had a bunch in my pocket, and Commissioner Box had a bunch. Could you get with Jennifer, and we need to update that, because I know a lot's changed since 2020, and we're out. So now's a good time to have 2022 on there, and information like the new license format would be a good piece of information to put on there, and that was something that really to me, I thought was, they were all looking at them and, talked about the number of acres and the number of lakes and streams and stuff. So it turned out that, the COVID they went in the closet for a while, but we brought it back out and it was very successful. So that's all I had. I just wanted you to tell Jennifer we miss her and hope she's got her sunscreen on, and we'll get those cards updated. Thanks.
Absolutely, Commissioner, be happy to do that. I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't comment at the outpouring of support from the commission, both at the sunset hearing and again at our budget hearing here more recently. The presence that y'all have had on the Hill has been wonderful to see and very helpful. A brief legislative update: the director and Ken and Jason and I did present our budget to Senate Energy Committee on Wednesday, and was approved for passage at the recommended level. And then, of course, the sunset hearing, and that went forward. So it's looking like probably the first week of March for the sunset review in the House. So I hope everybody will make plans to be back for that. And then our budget hearing in the House, I believe, is March the 1st. So those are kind of the next upcoming dates where we'll be down on the Hill talking about TWRA.
I think everybody would like to get an email when you're having a hearing like that, whether you think you need us or not. I think somebody might be in town that might drop by and just lend support. I think we'd appreciate getting that.
I'll certainly keep you up to date on those hearings.
Thank you.
Did you have a
Commissioner
date
Box?
on that March?
The sunset hearing, I believe right now is tentatively, while the calendars don't come out this far in advance, the information I have is that we'll be in front of House Government Operations on March the 7th,
So,
which is a Monday, and it'll be that committee generally meets at 1:30 in the afternoon.
okay, thanks.
Commissioner Box, did you have something?
Yes, we're going to take a short break for some technical issues we need to correct. So,
Okay. And then we'll have Tim.
yeah, great.
One of our visitors was late signing up. I'd like to recognize him, Mr. Joel Vanderpooi from down at Spring Hill. He's a transplant from one of them foreign countries up north, and we're glad to have him down in our part of the country. He's a Pheasant Forever member for many years, and he's a current Quail Forever member of our chapter down in Murray County, and Phil's been working with us and him, and so I appreciate him being here.
So are you asking him to speak, or are you just introducing him? Okay. Are we breaking right now? Are you somebody, Commissioner Granberry?
They're correcting the IT issue, just be.
Okay, so we're gonna sit still.
I see Stephanie sitting over there quietly. Stephanie, could you give the commissioner an update? I know we're waiting on our final permit for the workstation in Jackson, and delivery date on the incinerator if it's available. If not, maybe next month. Just real quick, I'd just like to keep that ball in there if we could. Oh.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So I just got an email today with the first pictures of the crematory. Our cart tipper is completed, and so is the vacuum system, so it's moving right along. It was really gratifying to see the pictures. The permitting, I don't have any updates, but we do have a design build firm, and we are getting the initial drawings. The one that I saw today was the building that's going to go around the crematory. So we're moving right along. I don't have an update on the permitting, though, unfortunately. Sure.
Tim,
Oh, I'm up.
every,
Okay.
every month, we get a financial report from Mr. Tarkenton that shows expenditures out of the Wetlands Fund, and, there's not an explanation of where that money goes. So a partial explanation of transactions, Tim's gonna give us maybe every month, or every time we spend some money, you're gonna give us an update on that, correct?
Well, this one is a full year, a little more than a year.
Okay,
I'll at least be here quarterly, I think, to try to update you on what real estate we have closed. I haven't done one in a long time, so I'm going back a whole year. It's not as bad as it sounds. We haven't bought that much land during this period, but some of it has been some pretty large wetland expenditures, and I'll show you all those. Let's see. Why is this not turning? that now? There we go. So I'm starting from west to east here. So I've kind of broken the state down into segments, into our regions. In Region 1, we've only done a couple of transactions in the last year. One was at Tigard, Folks Track, that closed, I think, last month. It's only 19 acres. It was, as I recall, it was a complete in-holding. So we always like to fill in-holdings in our WMAs when we can. We like to provide new access when we can for the public and for our workers. And then this other one that we closed down at the Wolf River WMA, that was a little larger. That was 270 acres, and that was a wetland. Both of these were wetland expenditures, as typically is the case with West Tennessee transactions. The little one was maybe 60,000, and I'm going too fast. I've already. What did I do? Go back. Go back. The bigger one was maybe 600,000 or 700,000, something like that. That was at Wolf River. And I'll just go slow like that. So if y'all have any questions when we get to your areas, just tell me to stop. In Region 2, we had a couple of very small tracts. These were, I don't think either of these were wetland. I think they were both either straight expenditures of licensed dollars or I'm pretty sure they were straight expenditures of licensed dollars. Shoal Creek was a fishing access at Shoal Creek. It was a pretty nice little area. It was 16 acres. I'm not real sure what the money was on all those. I guess I can include that next time. But it was minimal, like $30,000-$40,000, and that will provide eventually a really nice ramp and access for people that fish Shoal Creek. Shoal Creek's famous for smallmouth in particular. The Harms Mill Dam is one of these cases of a lowhead dam that's way past its prime. It's fallen apart. Eventually, and there's endangered species downstream, and so the idea here is that eventually that dam will come out. A new facility will go in there for access to the river. It's far enough downstream on the Elk, I guess, that it will allow motorized boats, I think, if we choose to do one of those types of ramps there. A little more activity further to the east. The largest conservation easement, we did a conservation easement purchase. We actually didn't pay anything for that. That was all covered by a Forest Legacy grant. It was worth, I want to say, about $5 million. We got 11,723 acres that are available now for hunting and wildlife recreation. It's a pretty large area, and it pretty well doubles the size of Skinner Mountain WMA, which is up to about a little over 20,000 acres. The others, the Tipton Tract was up there. That was an in-holding into Skinner Mountain, and none of these are wetland that I can remember. No, none of them are wetland, and that one I don't recall the what that cost, but it was 22 acres. About the same size tract at Mount Roosevelt WMA, another in-holding. I think that one was 30 or 40,000. Cummings Cove is one that you may have heard about. That was a disposal. That was the opposite of acquisition. We sold the Cummings Cove WMA. It had a grant, a federal grant associated with it, a Forest Legacy grant. By the rules of that grant, we had to reinvest the money that we raised from that, and we did buy a piece of property of roughly equal size at Bear Hollow Mountain, just to the west in Franklin County. So that's been replaced. There's some extra revenue that's being held by the Tennessee Division of Forestry, and we may be able to use that to acquire yet another property in that same general area as Cummings Cove. Well, I'm going to show you when we talk about Cummings Cove, and at the end of this, it was really destroyed by OHV traffic. It wasn't being, and it had no access as well, so it wasn't. We couldn't use it. The public couldn't use it. Then over to Region 4, we are allowed to use wetland funds in the North Cumberlands, particularly around the North Cumberland Wildlife Management Area. So we did some additions here. At the Sunquist unit, we bought the Stewart Tract, which was actually, it's additional hunting habitat or hunting and wildlife habitat, but it's also important link on several of the sanctioned OHV trails that we have up there. The guy, it was at risk in that if a private developer had got it, we don't know what would have happened to those trails. So it allowed us to keep those trails open. That one I think was a couple $100,000. And then the Ed Carter unit, which was a conservation easement as well. That conservation easement, almost 43,000 acres, cost us about $8.5 million of wetland funds. So that was our biggest expenditure of the year, and it happened right at the end of 2021. So the Ed Carter unit is ours. All the recreational rights are ours, and the development rights as well. So we are, and we got it at $400 an acre, and it was a pretty good deal. So those are my acquisitions across the state, and I'm available. Any questions?
Okay. Next time, if you get the dollar amount to go with those when you do it again. But anybody have any questions or comments about that? Yeah, he'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's approximate. I think we probably spent of wetland fund $10 or $12 million in the last year. That's the most I've ever spent since 2012 on land acquisition out of that wetland fund. So.
Okay. Madam Chairman, I think if nobody's got any questions, that's the end of it.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion, commission announcements? We're going to talk about the airport? Okay. Okay. All right.
Are we doing executive session after this? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Madam Chairman. Stephanie Carnes, we have a budget expansion request. My mistake.
This should be fairly quick, so I know everybody's a little bit antsy, especially with the weather, so.
We're good.
I am very fortunate to talk about something that's relatively non-controversial and really good and kind of interesting too, so I'm lucky this time. We have received $69,000 from the Wild Turkey Federation Super Fund. Let's see. I thought I knew how to do this. Is it? Sorry, everybody. There we go. So this is a simple budget expansion request. It is simply because we received $69,000 from the Wild Turkey Federation Super Fund. They are fantastic partners, and I know quite a few folks here are going to be going to the convention this weekend. So this is a great time to really be thinking about it. These funds were granted to us as part of the mission of the Federation for both heritage and habitat for turkeys. And this year, they've actually had take a couple years off of these Superfund donations because of COVID and because of major losses in income, and so this is a great opportunity to have them back and have their support back. They awarded about $85,000 to $90,000 this year from the Superfund, and we were fortunate to receive $69,000. And that's going to fund 5 different habitat management projects. It'll be 4 different WMAs and then one that's statewide. Some of the work, a lot of the work is associated with maintaining wildlife openings so that good habitat that has value just needs some maintenance. And then there's also some aerial herbicide application and some prescribed fire, a little bit of equipment and supplies for prescribed fire. So the work will be done at Chuck Swan, John Tully and Shelby Forest, North Cumberland, and Pea Ridge and Bridgestone Firestone, and that will all be done to support turkey habitat. So.
Thank you. Is that-
So-
Hang on,
I'm sorry?
finished?
I am, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I need a motion from the committee to receive this money.
So moved.
Need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? You have a comment, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a comment. I love seeing these projects where you've actually got boots on the ground doing stuff. This is a great project to be partnered up with the National Wild Turkey Federation with.
Thank you very much. They are great partners for us and for
Any
turkeys.
other questions or comments? Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I think we're finished now. We're okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stephanie, any more questions or comments? Not motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.